Alright, hello everybody. Here we are in section 2.8, the last section of chapter 2. What we want to talk about today is how do we graph linear and absolute value inequalities. So we're kind of advancing a little bit. We're adding absolute value into this. And what you'll notice is when you graph inequalities, it's not like the number line technique we used to use. We're actually going to shade a space, not just the direction of a line. So as you see here, if we just had an old y equals 3. So a linear form, in this case a constant, you see how we have a flat line at the 3 mark of the y-axis. We don't shade anything because it's just equal to a 3. But when you actually add in an inequality, if you look over here at number 2, it says y is less than 3. So we go up to 3, we locate that spot on the y-axis, and since it's less than 3, we did not say anything about it being equal to 3, so that's why you see a dashed line. So the dashed line occurs there, and since it's less than, the second thing happens. We can be anything less than that line. So that's why you see all the shaded lines underneath our flat line of y is less than 3. Okay? Let's look at a couple other examples. It's going to gradually increase in its difficulty. But all of these you guys can handle, because we're going to see a lot of mx plus b forms. Alright, let me switch the sheets. Okay, so our third problem. We go up a bit in the rigor. It says y is greater than or equal to negative 2x minus 4, as you read at the top. So as you see, we've already got our slope in place, we already have our y-intercept in place. And in blue, I've documented that. M equals negative 2 over 1, or it's 2 over negative 1. It just depends on how you read it and what space you have on your graph that's available. Alright, so that's our movement. We don't start with that. We always want to start with our y-intercept, which in this case is b equals negative 4. So on my graph, I'm going to go find my negative 4 spot, and as you can see, I'm an excellent grapher because I missed my point. So anyways, here's my point, and I started at that dot where my finger is, and I want to use my slope of negative 2 over 1. But if I go down 2 and over 1, I'm going to end up off my board. So I decided to go up 2 and backwards 1. You can do that. You can go either direction, and then up 2 and backwards 1. Hey, I finally hit a dot. Yes. And up 2, backwards 1. So you can see I'm building my line. So the y-intercept is where you begin, b, and then the m, the slope, is where you move. Okay? And so you can continue to build your line as many times as you like with the slope. In my case, I only have so much whiteboard. I can only go so far. Now, further on. It says greater than or equal to. So since it says equal to, that's why I have a solid line in this case. And since it's greater than, I want you to think of this as being above the line. Greater than. So if I take this line, on the top side of this line, I'll shade. If it were to be less than, then I want to shade it underneath. Okay, make that point clear. We're going to see that again in a few moments. But above is greater than, less than is below. That's only when you have it in the y equals format. So when the y is in the front, your greater than is pointing to the right, that's when you follow this type of scenario. Above to the is greater than, and below is less than. Alright? Okay, get into some more rules here. Well, let's look at number 4 first before we talk about any rules. Okay? Alright, I've got graph negative x plus 2y is greater than 4. First things first. That's right, Bilbo. Put it in y equals format. Alright, he's on it tonight. So, I want to move this around and get it into y equals format. Solve for y. So I rewrote it right here, if you can see. I decided to add the x to the right side. So if I add x here and I add x there, my x's cancel out and I have 2y's greater than 4 and I'm going to add x. So 2y greater than x plus 4. So my 2y had the 2 in front of it, so I want to divide every term by 2. Okay, make sure you understand what I'm saying. Dividing by 2 in every spot. So 2 over 2 is just a 1y, greater than, because I did not multiply or divide by a negative sign. So I have 1/2 x, x over 2 is 1/2, and then 4 divided by 2 is positive 2. So I make a little arrow and a note. I'm in mx plus b form, so my m is the 1/2, and my b is the 2. So on my graph, I go over here and I start at the 2, the beginning point, so up 2 on the y-axis, put a point down, and my slope is 1/2, so I can go up 1 over 2. I put another point, I can go up 1 over 2, put another point. I can also go down 1 and backwards 2, put a point, and down 1 and backwards 2. So you get the idea. We can build this line each direction. Okay? Now, lastly, I have greater than. That's why you see that it is a dashed line. It's not equal to. And then I want to have greater than, so I'm going to shade above the line. Alright? Shade above when it's greater. So, next, if I can avoid that glare for you, sorry, follow these rules. In this box, I have a little cheat sheet for you. And you only want to do this, I'll refer to the bottom first, only when the y equals mx plus b. Okay? So, the greater than or equal to only shows up when you are, or excuse me, you only shade above the line when you have greater than or equal to, and you have a solid line. You shade above still when you have a greater than, but you have a dashed line. And just follow the matrix. If you want to have a solid line and shade below, you have less than or equal to. And if it's a dashed line and you're shading below, it ought to have been a less than sign. So maybe write this down in your notes, keep that in there, and refer to it when you get confused. Okay, that's only when you have it in y equals form. Y equals mx plus b. Alright? Last one. No ESPN updates. No babies crying. That's already happened. And my dog's scared of the thunder. So, just me and inequalities right now. Alright. We're going to graph some absolute value inequalities here. I got a busy board here. Let's see if I can avoid that glare mark. We'll get out of it a little bit. Okay, so at the top, it says graph y plus 4 is less than or equal to the absolute value of x minus 2. Well, first things first, I want to make sure that I isolate my y variable. So the 4 is in the way. I'm going to subtract it from both sides. Now, I'm not going to subtract the 4 from the negative 2, because remember, that's in brackets, in bars. I cannot combine with that. So if you look at the next line, the 4 obviously canceled out over here on the left side. Y is less than or equal to the bars, and then the minus 4 showed up on the outside. Alright, remember how to do that. Don't combine like terms here. So, I look at my transformation. What's going on here? Well, on the outside, remember guys, if you trust it, it says minus 4, so I'm going down 4. On the inside, it's saying minus 2, but do the opposite, so you're adding 2. Okay, so going to the right 2. So I need to know how to graph this. I didn't have a calculator at the time, so I made a table. X and then my Y column. The Y column is just this stuff. So where are my points going to be? I plugged in 2, because I knew it was moving to the right 2 spots. So I plugged in 2, and 2 minus 2 is 0, and the absolute value of 0 is 0. So 0 minus 4 is negative 4. And I did that with all these points. If you notice that if I plug in a 1 for x and a 3 for x, I get the same thing. In the end, I get negative 3. And the same thing goes for the 0 and the 4. So I've got my points, and you can kind of check me on that if you want to pause the video and just double check my math. I plotted them. 2, negative 4 is this one right here, the deep part. 1, negative 3 is right here. 3, negative 3 is over here. 0, negative 2, and 4, negative 2. So I connected my dots, and I used a solid line because in my problem, it's equal to. I also want to shade appropriately. So when I shaded, I shaded below because it's less than. So if it were greater than, I would have actually shaded inside my V. Since it's less than, I'm shading outside my V. Alright, take note of that. So here is a cheat sheet that gives you all the different ways you could graph or shade and graph an inequality. Notice I have solid lines and I have dashed lines. Solid dash, solid dash, solid dashed. So follow the arrows, jot this down in your own notes, and refer to it. So, for example, when y is greater than the absolute value of x, I have an upwards v, and I'm greater than, I'm not equal to, so I dash it and I shade above it, which means on the inside. And contrast that with one like right here, less than or equal to negative square or absolute value of x, so it's going down because it's negative, a reflection about the x-axis, and it's less than, so I'm going to shade underneath it, and it's equal to, so I have a solid line. Alright? There you go. That's 2.8 in a nutshell. We'll have a small assignment on it, and we'll get ready for this Chapter 2 test. So, thank you for your attention, especially you, Bilbo, because you've asked many questions that I've ignored, apparently. So if you guys have any questions in class, seriously, I need you to ask, and make sure you watch the video. If you need any more time, reviewing this, pause it, go back over some examples, and I'll see you in class next. So always remember, you want to flip and not flop. Bye-bye.